Teachers, what's your story about the worst parent you've ever had to deal with? Not my stories, but those of my wife. She works in a very poor district, and one of her first years in education she had a kid who had a severe and untreated cleft palate. She wrote to the local university hospital and got them to treat the kid for free. Specialist, return visits, surgeries etc. all covered. The kid was ecstatic after his first surgery as it was a huge improvement. A few months later another surgery, more improvement. Kid is much better, but still needed a ton more work. The father decided to move to Utah and abandon treatment, as he recently became involved with Mormonism. He told my wife God sent us you. If he wants, let's call him Little Johnny. To finish his treatment he'll send us someone else. Another one. She notices that a kid is getting dirtier and is wearing the same clothes as the week progresses. It is unusual for him, so she asks him why his father hasn't been cleaning him, to which he responds, "Daddy hasn't been home all week." Turns out the kid's mom had left them and gone back to Uruguay and the father was holed up on a bender at his new girlfriend's house. He told them that he didn't want to deal with the kids anymore. This first grader had been getting him and his younger brother up, dressed and to school for a week. My wife teaches in a poor part of town. She's had abusive grandmas, drunks, you name it. The one that sticks in my mind is when the cops had to take a little girl because Child Protective Services didn't have anyone free. The little girl had shown up at school with a belt buckle shaped welt on her face. It wasn't her first incident. I taught English in China, mostly university level, but I also worked at a tutoring school for high schoolers. This one kid's mother demanded that my student, who was 14, write a 10-page paper every day. One every freaking day. My hour spent tutoring him was always spent going over his paper and telling him where he needed to stop repeating himself, where personal anecdotes weren't appropriate, and where I could tell that the anecdotes were totally made up. I tried telling him that some of the prompts he chose didn't need more than 3 or 4 pages. I tried pleading with him to stop writing when he had said everything he needed to say, not when he hit the 10th page. But his mom, who spoke no language besides the native one, would punish him if he didn't write 10 pages, withholding food, beating him, all that nasty crap. So his writing quality got worse and worse as he prepared for his English exam to finish high school in the US because he never learned how to write with quality, only quantity. I sent him home with a big note to his mom about why what she was doing was going to cause him to fail his big exams, and she came to the school to scream at me about how I was a terrible teacher and had no idea what American schools needed. Lol, what? He failed the exam, which surprised nobody at the tutoring center, and his mother beat him so badly he was pulled out of school for a couple weeks. What sucked the most is that there aren't exactly laws against that sort of thing, and there's nothing I could do about it but work with the center to get him more hours there, and less at home. I still think about him, and I hope he eventually got out of the country and away from his parents. When I went to kindergarten, my mom was an aide there to help kids who were slow. The first day of school one kid showed up and they had no idea who he was. He hadn't been enrolled. His mother just put him on a school bus. At least he made it to school. Could have been a lot worse. I used to work at a pupil referral unit, which is basically a school for 14-16s to come once they've been excluded from mainstream. We had all the nasty behavior students who couldn't handle normal school in a safe manner. One of these kids, let's call him Dave, was an intermittent attender, only coming into school once or twice every few weeks. He was always a good lad when he came in though, very mature, but like the majority of these kids he had plenty of family issues at home. His mother in particular liked to beat him when he went home, so he spent most of his time around other family members' houses or on the streets. One day he comes in with a massive black eye and a few broken ribs. We get him taken to hospital and get child protection involved as it's clear evidence of what we've suspected. So anyway, a few weeks later and CPS had some of Dave's family in to interview. It turns out that the brothers of Dave had claimed that they were able to take him out of the danger he was in and could look after him in their own houses. What CPS didn't realize was that these brothers were beating him as much as his mother but kept it quiet to stop him being taken away by CPS. On the second to last day I saw Dave, he came in with a mobile phone and a GPS in his hand, his fist covered in blood and a look of not really bothered on his face. I asked what had happened. He said that he'd punched a cabbie's window in. smashed him in the face a few times, then nicked his GPS and his phone. I was like, yes, I can see that. But why? He smiled and said, because now I'm going to get arrested, and then I get away from my family and have some food. The last time I saw Dave, he came into the school before his court appearance to sort some details out. He had this massive grin on his face even though he was cuffed. He looked at me and said, I had orange juice today, sir. First time ever, and he didn't stop smiling. Worst mother ever for causing her son to consider crime as an alternative to being at home with her. Just wow, really. I had the parent of a kid who came up to me and said, I don't understand why my son got an 85% and that other kid got 90%. My son and all his friends tell me the other kid sucks at sports and yet he gets a higher grade than my son. I'm very disappointed in you, HIV Aladdin. Another story, a mother of a kid who got 97% in my class came up to me, as serious as possible, and said, what's wrong with my kid? I looked at her and said, nothing. Your child has the best mark in my class. She goes, yes, but where can he do better to get that extra 3%? Frick parents. My wife is a teacher in a very small, very poor, rural southern town. On a weekly basis, she's dealing with drunks, addicts, neglect, and abuse. She has lots of stories, but the saddest one that stands out to me was a little boy who didn't have a coat. The school takes donations from the community and supplies winter coats and shoes to any kids who don't have them. So anyway, it was getting cold and the little boy didn't have a coat. My wife went to the school nurse and got one of the donated coats and gave it to the boy. A few days later, she got word that the same boy again didn't have a coat. She asked him if he had forgotten it and he burst into tears. After several minutes of consoling him and assuring him that he wasn't in trouble, he told her the truth. His mom had sold it. From what I know of the mom, it was almost certainly for drug money. My GF is a teacher and she tells me of the horrible meetings she has with parents, and the ones that stick out are the aggressive parents who think she is lying about their children missing, not doing work. My GF is incredibly well organized. There may be an accident here and there, but if your little girl is missing 10 assignments, it's not the teacher losing things. If you need to physically intimidate someone, you're pretty fricked up, especially when it's a 5'4" woman. She has 3 sets of parents that need to have administration in the room to supervise them because they will try to bully her. I have to. My first year of teaching, I had a student with severe ADD and some moderate processing issues. She was also the sweetest, hardest working student in the grade. Problem was, without her meds, she could not focus and retained nothing. Her mother refused to give her meds, even when the student begged her, and then refused to let her stay to tutor with me after school, stating, I didn't even finish school, became a model and am doing fine. My daughter can do the same. Besides, her father is paying you to tutor her, not me, and frick him. Second year, had a student with very severe processing issues and very severe executive function problems whose mother was not only another special education teacher at my school, but was also best friends with my boss and was not a certified teacher. According to this woman, I was incompetent and a bully. Why? I made her son do his work. I sat down with him every day and retaught him everything and helped him get through his homework. He just didn't want to do it with me because he knew she would do it for him if he brought it home. He actually told me this, so he'd cry to his mom and she would confront me in the hallways about bullying her baby. Sadly, she also shared her feelings with my boss, her bestie, which caused a great deal of drama. I still worry about both of these kids. Yay parents. Last year, we had a very angry parent of a young lady who was enrolled in Running Start here at the college who was being lied to by his daughter in an effort to hide the fact she was not going to class. For those who don't know, Running Start is a state-funded opportunity for high school students to finish high school with college credits that apply to their college transcripts. This young lady was telling her father that she was doing extremely well in her 2 classes she was enrolled in, but naturally her grades at the end of the quarter suggested otherwise. Dad got mad and would frequently call the instructors in question and their respective deans in a fit of total fury, threatening lawsuits if he was not given answers as to why they were failing his angelic child in all her classes. However, since this is a college, we can't just release any ol information, not even because her attendance blows, unless a waiver is signed by the student. This peed him off even more. Eventually, he gets directed to my office. I'm no instructor, but one of the hats I wear here is being the one who gets to deal with all the angry formal complaints once the instructor and the dean can no longer handle it. That said, people are usually quite livid by the time they get to me. This man called me at least once or twice every day in attempt to get in touch with the vice president, the president, you name it. He called me awful things, yelled and slurred with his accent behind comprehension, and complained about our crappy education system for ages, and it was my job to listen, every day, joy, and all the while, I have to repeatedly remind him I can't tell him anything about his daughter's time here because it is an ethical violation when there is no waiver on file, but heaven forbid he take no for an answer. He started coming onto campus and stalking the instructors by waiting at their offices, attempting to confront the dean in person, etc. Each time, we told him we couldn't release personal information unless his kid signed the waiver. Eventually, security got involved and he was banned from campus. My supervisor had told me after the fact that she found his daughter had actually been removed from one of our sister colleges prior to her enrollment with us. Apparently her father had been stalking instructors for the same reasons and they believed him to be a serious threat. Just a story from when my mother was a teacher. My mother taught in a school district in Utah for 30 years. She saw everything from science room explosions to affluent teens shooting semi-automatic weapons into the side of the school. This was pre-Columbine, mind you. One story she told me once I came out of the closet affected me deeply. She had been a very understanding teacher and a lot of students would confide their deepest, darkest secrets to her. One teen had finally worked up enough courage to tell her that he was gay. She asked him if his parents knew and if they were accepting. He said that his parents didn't know, and he was afraid to tell them. I guess eventually he finally told his mother, who then told the father. Now this father was the bishop to one of the churches in the ward, loved by many and considered a good man. When he found out, he pushed his son down the stairs and beat the ever-loving crap out of him. This happened regularly, one time putting him in the hospital. The mother did nothing. She would call my mother in the middle of the night sobbing, not knowing what to do. My mother had to sit there and listen to one of her best and brightest students scream in pain while his father beat him. After he graduated high school, the boy moved to SLC to live a more open lifestyle. This again was early 90s and the HIV epidemic was still very deadly. He ended up contracting HIV and was dead by his mid-20s. The parents were so ashamed of him. They had no funeral and no headstone. They gave him a small marker and that was it. My mother was so enraged by this, she called them and basically chewed out the father for being such a horrible person. They finally got him a tombstone. On it, they had listed his death date as the day he told them he was gay. It is part of the reason I never want to go back to my hometown. Never confuse piousness with morality. When I was working as a library and office aide in high school, I had to deal with a lot of parents. The one I remember most clearly was a mother who stormed the office during registration week, which is during the summer. At my high school, if there is a problem with your schedule, you line up outside the office and wait to meet with your counselor, which can take hours. Most people bring a cup of coffee and a friend parent to wait it out. This lady barged into the office, having cut in front of over 100 patiently waiting students, and demanded to see a counselor. The administrative assistant in the office asked why, and the lady said she wanted to discuss her son's high school education. When asked to leave and come by at a less busy time, her eyes bulged and she started yelling, "But I am an involved parent. I need to speak to my son's counselor to be involved in his education." That lady picked absolutely the wrong week to throw a fit in the office. Not a teacher, but I used to be a monitor at summer camp. There was this little boy, Kyle, who was always pushing his and our limits, being a little brat, bullying other kids and thus regularly put in timeout, which somehow made his behavior even worse. So after another hard day, I decided to inform his mom about his behavior, to which she said, "Oh, I know, he's the worst. Just punish him before he gets the chance to say anything." That's what we do. No wonder he'd been acting out. Little boy just wanted some attention. Not a teacher but a school counselor. I had two parents in a crazy custody battle and found out long after the fact that both parents would secretly record their meetings with me. Apparently they kept bringing the tapes to court to show that the other parent is a bad parent, not even sure what they thought they could prove. The judge continued to tell them that they can't record people without their consent. 3 years ago I got this kid in my class who had been expelled from his previous school. At 4th grade, that's kind of impressive, so I was pretty interested in learning more. When school started, he was a real angry kid, quick to fight, kind of a grudge holder. He got suspended the second week of school for starting a fight in the cafeteria. When we had his back to school conference with mom, she said she appreciated us suspending him because she had been trying to get SSI money for him for being crazy for years. You gotta make one crazy, so they will send you a check, she told me. So anyway, come to find out this woman was taking a normal kid and telling him he was crazy and worthless and stupid. He wasn't actually any of those things. He was angry and poorly raised. Anyway, he ended up doing well at our school. He was actually quite bright, and I got him placed in our tag, gifted, program. When his mom found out, she came up to school to tell me I was a stupid C who was ruining the work she'd done. Also, he had a little sister in kindergarten who he was basically raising. It was so hard at the end of the year to send him home for a summer with his mom, but he apparently is still doing well. He's in 7th grade this coming fall and he still comes back to update me on his doings. My mother, who is a teacher, actually says it's the parents who don't care that are the worst. She can handle angry parents just fine, but parents that don't give a crap about their kids' education pee her off. Confiscated a cell phone that was being used to take pictures of other students, one of them mine, in the bathroom from a 6th grade boy. His father showed up an hour later with a lawyer to threaten me with a lawsuit. Good times were had by all. Worst kind of parents are teacher parents. I am a teacher myself, and let me tell you, you are not a teacher here and you don't get to tell me how to do my job. I teach at a preschool, and one day a parent was called because their child had thrown up. The mother showed up an hour later, just as he was beginning to throw up again into the tiny toilet in our classroom. I was tending to him, encouraging him to aim for the toilet, rubbing his back, etc. The mother comes marching into the room and tells me to back off. I need to take his temperature now. I told her very politely not to move him just now, as he was actively vomiting into the toilet. She proceeded to use her shoulder to move me out of the way to grab her child and ram a thermometer into his ear. The second she gets it in there, he vomits all over the floor. She turns to me and says, "Wow, that's a big mess. You really should have kept him at the toilet." Another on the line of camp counselor stories. I had a 12-year-old boy in my group. He was definitely bulimic and all the kids were super worried about him. When he admitted it to me, he confessed that his parents knew and were grounded it for him. He was only allowed to eat and use the bathroom. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.